So the source of all is the same one silent being. That we are in the process of seeing through any sense of differentiation so that we follow everything back before otherness, right? So we want to trace everything that seems to be separate, seems to be other than what you are, back to the source, to find that the source of all is the same one silent being. All love belongs to the one heart, right? So there is no separation, there is no division, there is only one. And really, this unfolding is the great and true discovery of this oneness, to discover what in truth is this all about? What is this? How is this one? And to discover in direct experience the absolute, unquestionable oneness. So there's a clue that if we see more than one, let's find out how it appears as 2 or 3 or 10 or a gazillion. Let's find out how that appearance is really one. Where is that one? And let's trace it back. Find out the source of all. Find out the source of diversity. Find out the source. Through the direct experience, we could say following anything and everything back to find out, where does this come from? Where is this arising from? Even to come to the answer, I don't know, is a kind of perfection, because in the I don't know, the mind surrenders knowledge, false knowledge, and allows the intelligence of pure consciousness to flow. So where the mind says, I don't know, there's a letting go. And what is true comes in and reveals that the cause of all is this, just this. The source of all is this. And what is this? It is this moment, here now. It is the simple being. There is only one being, only one self. And our quest in the human life is to discover in direct experience that this is so. Unquestionably, undoubtedly, that this is so. So that the knowing, the deep and unquestionable knowing is there is only the self. There is only one. One heart, one self, one love, one God, one incredible flow of grace, one unconditioned flow of life, one purity, one simplicity, only one, no other, no second, never has been a second. And if there is a quest, it is returning to the original naturalness, to the sahajam, right? To come to the natural state, the stateless state, that which is not attained, right? So there's no one to attain or achieve anything. We come to a freedom from any sense of attainment or attainable. We come to that which ever has been exactly the same, eternal, timeless being, right here now. The incredible grace is that this truth is right here, and you already are this. Be not mistaken. It's not that you have left this or you have lost this. You are this right now, without question. And it is in your direct experience to discover the unquestionable truth about what you are, about what all of this is, and how there is only one. Not in a way of understanding with the mind, because that is never ever going to happen. The mind can never understand this, because mind is a function which is limited. It's a limited flow of consciousness. This discovery of the oneness is in the oneness. This discovery of being is in being. The discovery of the self is in the self alone. Discovering that which rests alone, always alone, the one with no second. That which rests alone. This is the true nature of all, the source of all. And so we have this incredible grace that in the felt sense of simple existence, the felt sense of just being here, of simply being, the felt sense of your own existence, it is the opening to this direct realization. It is not reserved for anyone in particular. It is not reserved for anyone special in any way. Quite the opposite. It is absolutely the essence nature of all beings, and any and every being can step into this openness in any moment, like this moment. Like this moment, for example, right now, in the felt sense of simply being here now, just being here. We could say the felt sense, I am, I am, I am. I am. This felt sense of simply being opens to the eternal presence that is ever present, always here, just like this. So the felt sense I am is the openness, the sense of existence. And here the openness that carries us deeper into the self, the heart. But to patiently wait here, I am, in the being, in the felt sense of being. And it does not matter if to start with the felt sense of being, the felt sense of recognition of being here, being aware of being here. It does not matter if this feels to be in the body or have a body consciousness, as the felt sense of simply being is just noticed, as you as awareness are aware of simply being. Awareness itself starts to remember and open in your direct experience to a more expanded field of your sense of existence, your sense of self. That the body is included, but we go before the body, bigger than the body, vaster than body. And so that there is no longer identification with body in the felt sense of yourself. so that there is no sense of identification in a body consciousness, like the identification that says, what I am is this body, what I am is this person. In the felt sense, I am, the felt sense of simply being, of existence. The naturalness, as awareness is aware of this, is the direct experience starts to feel naturally more relaxed, open, expansive. The felt sense of yourself as the being starts to be directly experienced in a more natural, vast, infinite way, right? So of course, the infinite eternal being is not restricted. The infinite eternal being is divinely whole and has never ever been anything other, just as you have never ever been anything other than divine wholeness. What we are moving through in this unfolding is the layers and veiling of individual experience. We are releasing the sense of individuality. So we come to direct experience, which feels like your unique direct experience. But as we recognize the direct experience of the now, we're opening to a field of pure experiencing where there's no one experiencing something. It is the being experiencing itself. And as the sense of individual experience, which is still a little bit present with I am, as this sense of expansion starts to happen in the individual experience, individual consciousness merges with the cosmic universal field in your direct experience. And you move from a direct experience of an individual experiencing I am. There's a natural merging where individual experience opens to true direct experience of consciousness itself experiencing itself. And there's no more sense of individuality. The direct experience, true direct experience, is the being directly being itself. We cannot even really say the being experiencing itself. It's more direct, it's more spontaneous, it's more simple, it's just being. So as individual experience opens, relaxes, softens from identification at the reference point of me, body consciousness, mind consciousness, identified at the singular point. In the felt sense, I am, the felt sense of your own presence, the felt sense of being. As you start to open to this, we could even say very beautifully that you start to realize that when the words here come, you start to realize that I'm not speaking to you, an individual. You is only ever addressing you, the pure consciousness, you, the self, you, the one being, right? So the word you is curious because it's depending on how you interpret it. It's a great clue, because if you feel that these words are speaking to you, an individual person, it's your clue that you are in body-mind consciousness. If you receive the you as the vast open field, then you recognize that you are merged into direct experience where there is no individual. And yet there is still an ability to recognize the reference point as part of an infinite field. But as consciousness merges, mind consciousness, body consciousness. We could say attention. As attention drops into relaxation and awareness is recognized by awareness, right? So the awareness is aware of itself. There's a merging of any sense of individuality into the unified field. And the direct experience of being is being just being. Direct experience is that what you are is the being, just the being. How do you know the being? Because you are the being, right? It doesn't need to be carried upstairs. Oh, am I the being? I don't know. I'm not sure. No, you're not. You're in your mind, right? Back down in the elevator, into the heart, into the expansive. You don't need to filter this recognition through the mind. You don't need permission to be yourself, right? You don't need a mental understanding. This recognition, the undoubtable, unquestionable recognition, can only happen in the direct experience of the being itself, where there is no sense of individuality, where the mind consciousness is not holding a shape or a form as a me, where mind consciousness dissolves into cosmic universal consciousness, pure consciousness. And then your direct experience, what you feel to be your direct experience, you still feel like the same one that you've always felt like. This is the place that confusion can come in, because there's imaginings in the mind of what this is to feel like, but you still feel the same self that you've always felt to be. It's just that the self that you are is felt directly to be infinite and unbounded and free. The felt sense of who you are, what you are, is directly experienced to be unbounded. And that is the felt sense of a natural expansion, a natural relaxation, to feel that you are everywhere, that you're not contained and tight and contracted in the body or in the mind, in thoughts, in the belief of a me, right? You're not contained by thought complexes. You're absolutely free instantaneously from thought complexes, and you're absolutely yourself. And it's a spontaneous, simple unhooking that happens right here now. So there's many words that we can use to describe or speak to exactly the same. So do not be fooled or tripped up by words where the mind can say, oh, but I don't know if it's actually awareness that I am. As soon as there's thinking, let it go. Let it go. Follow it back to the source, right? What we're speaking of is before thought. Any thought, not truth, right? We're before thought. We're before form even. We're before shape. We're before patterning. We're before conditioning. And we can drop into an instantaneous, spontaneous, direct experience of being the being. Now, this will depend on how busy the mind is and how protection is trying to play. It will depend on how many projections, threads of projection, are invested in creating a my world, a my story, right? So we cannot see that the fullness of that picture until we are resting in the intelligence. And when we are resting in the intelligence, we are the consciousness, conscious of itself and intelligently knowing itself. And this true intelligence is before intellect, right? It's got no thread of mind in it, true intelligence. It's the pure knowledge. It's the knowledge and the intelligence that is recognized to be here before anything learned. It's self-born knowledge. It's born of the self. It's born in this moment, fresh, of the self knowing itself. It's a flow of natural intelligence when the self is resting in itself. The effulgence, the lightness and the flow of the self knowing itself, it flows as intelligence. It flows as a deep rooted wisdom, knowing itself. So wherever there's a single thought, a curiosity, a wondering, a questioning, it's all the mind. See it and let go into the felt sense, I am, just being, simple existence. Come to recognize what is the avenue that opens the recognition. Come to recognize what is the magic, right? In a way like mantra or word, like what is it that opens up a remembering? Because not every word will resonate. And it's to recognize, oh, here now, here now, here now. Softening and recognition of the being. And then there's a patient resting here, here now, here now, here now. I am, I am, I am, just being. The felt sense of silence, the deep, recognizable, palpable stillness, whatever it is that brings this remembering. And then here the resting, where awareness itself is aware of being. Being is aware of being. And here the aliveness of presence starts to really come alive, right? It's enlivened through focus. It's enlivened through aware attention. It's enlivened through the aware attention being pulled out of projection and being aware of the seemingly external, where awareness, where the attention pulls in from the external and being aware of things to being aware of itself. So right now, to be aware of yourself, simply being here, just being here, and being aware of being here. It starts to enliven the felt sense of presence, starts to enliven the direct experience of the being the field, right? So the first, in a way, the first felt sense of being is the felt sense of presence, the felt sense of being here now, being here now. And this is where this felt sense, this direct experience, when there's a resting here, the direct experience opens to the being, to consciousness, consciously awake and aware of itself. So none of these words need to make sense to the mind or be understood or qualified in any way. Really, as these words come, it's all about the resonance. It's all about the frequency, the recognition, because the felt sense, let's say, of being, it's a frequency. It's like a vibration, a presence. It's a silence, a silent presence that is very noticeable because it's yourself, it's your own presence, right? So it can feel like, oh yeah, that presence, I'm aware of that. No, you're not someone that's aware of it. That's just the habit of speech. You are the presence that's aware of your own presence. It's much more direct and simple than that. In a way, there can be a subtlety of mind consciousness, because mind consciousness is still a consciousness, but it's not purely aware. It's not conscious of itself. It has a sense of understanding. So we're pointing to that deeper rooted felt sense of being, and it's recognizable by the stillness, the felt sense. Oh, this presence is still. This presence is silent. This presence is openness. This presence is really alive with its own recognition of itself. And here we open to the field, the unified field, the infinite field. And the field is the cosmic, universal field of consciousness. So here we're in a depth of relaxation in the consciousness, which is the essence, pure consciousness that all beings are in truth, right? Everything is consciousness flowing, taking, let's say, taking the appearance of shape, we would have to say, taking the appearance of form, flowing as life, flowing as mind consciousness. But all of these things, when perceived in a limited context, feel to create separation and division. But the truth is, they're not creating separation and division. There's never any separation or division. You are never in separation. You never have been in separation, because it just doesn't exist, right? It's a belief, we could say. It's an experience, but it's not the direct experience of pure consciousness. It's an experience of the me when it's thinking, when the thinking consciousness is moving. It's that consciousness is just moving at a singular point in a limited context. And that flow of consciousness can only reference itself in its limited flow. It's still, in essence, the same unified field of universal consciousness. It's still the same consciousness in essence. But when it's moving in a loop, it's telling itself, you are this person, you have a life, you have got to make a really big success of this life. You better do it right. You better do it right. Because otherwise you're going to be just miserable, right? You got to keep trying, and it's off, right? It's off and running. It's got a gazillion things to tell itself, but it's telling itself those things. It's creating all of these beliefs because it wants to know itself. It just wants to be free. And it doesn't quite know how to be free. So it keeps telling itself, well, you better do this and you better do that. And you just better do this and you better try harder and you better move in this direction. And well, see what happens when you don't do it that way. You know, it's just constantly chatting away with itself. You see, you're not enough. You see, you're not trying hard enough. Try a little harder. See what happens? Try harder, try harder. You're not getting it right. There's something deeply flawed about you. You're getting it wrong. Try harder, right? Effort, try. And so this little flow of consciousness is like stuck. It's like an old-fashioned record that the needle has got stuck on. It's just playing the same bit again and again and again. And it doesn't know quite how to stop that same thing playing. It's trying to make the best of it, right? Good job for trying to make the best of it. But it's never going to be good enough, because that consciousness that's dancing in a limited context, telling itself the story of me and mine, it knows its essence, nature, is this free, vast, pure, immaculate being. It knows that. You know that. You know it right now. And that's where, in a mature being, where there's a readiness, and many of the veils have been removed through a gazillion lives lived. When there's a readiness, that felt sense of longing is really palpable. It's grace to have a longing. It's grace to have a yearning. It's grace to start asking the deeper questions. It's the sign of maturity. That's all. It's just, oh, there's a readiness in this life. And this is incredible grace, because this longing is the recognition that somehow there's a knowing that this sense of separation and me and my life just doesn't feel like the whole big picture, because it's not, and you know it. And the deep longing is to know, well, what is this big picture? Show me the whole infinite expanded reality. Show me totality. Show me what I belong to, right? Let's start asking for what we really want, right? Let's stop asking for more things and more experiences, right? Let's stop cluttering up our life and open spaciousness of being with more ideas and concepts and experiences. And let's start asking for this truth to be revealed, for the veils to thin, to know this. Let's start falling into the longing deeper and deeper, because it's to notice that the longing in its purest state is this yearning, this ache to know yourself. It's like a desire, a pull, a magnetic pull. And when we just feel the energetic of this, we're meeting the force field of consciousness trying to suck all sense of individuality and patterning that is hooked up. It's trying to pull itself into the remembering of freedom. So to open to the longing is to open to the flow, the current, the natural current. And the first thing that happens when we come to the longing in its purity is that we come to presence. We come to the alive presence, right? There's an intelligence that is running all of this, right? It's a wise and intelligent flow of consciousness. So when we come to the longing, we can feel the aliveness and the sense of presence of just being here. Oh, just be here, just be here, just be here. Be here at the holy bus stop, right? At the holy taxi stop, just wait here. Wait here. Longing, longing, longing. Show me totality. Show me what God is. Show me what I am. Show me this truth. Dissolve all sense of me into you. Dissolve all sense of separation, of experience into a pure flow of unconditioned life. Dissolve everything that I think I am into what I truly am, right? We start resting here, feeling this truth, feeling the aliveness. For some, these kind of, so in a way, these musings, that the words that are coming forward are like bhakti surrender, right? Swallow me whole, take me into you, leave nothing that is not this shining truth, right? These are a bhakti. So for some, these will feel really enlivening, and for some beings, it will feel like, right? You have to find the right resonance to pull you in. And sometimes it's more of this sense of I am, just being, just being, just being, right? What is this I? What is this I? in a way, for some, this sense of questioning, what is this I? Where does it come from? Right? It engages the intellect, right? And where there's a lively intellect, we can awaken that intellect through following. What is this I? I. What is the source? Right? And here you'll start to feel a resonance if this is what is the way that carries you into yourself, right? So there are other subtle flavors, right? There can be flavors of one-pointedness, like that warrior. Stay here, do not move, right? Justice, 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 right? Can be to feel the incredible aliveness, right? To feel the aliveness of this presence, the incredible beauty of this aliveness, the fullness of this moment. It does not matter, but you will recognize where there's resonance, and it's where there's resonance. Be carried, be carried, be carried by the resonance. Be carried into the remembering of the being that you are, into the remembering of what you have always been, right? So there's this surrender that happens. There's this awakening of the intellect that happens. There's this merging of any sense of mind, body, consciousness, and individuality into the recognition of the being. Now, of course, the deeper that the taste happens, the deeper the glimpses come, it shifts the perspective of seeing. It shifts the perspective to being the being, knowing itself, being the consciousness, consciously awake and aware of itself. There's never any need to come to the mind to get verification, right? Because the confirmation, the verification is in the heart itself. It's the heart that knows. It's the openness. It's the unquestionable direct experience that unhooks the threads of mind consciousness to bring a depth of silence and stillness that is so rich. The stop, of engagement with the external, the stop of seeking, the stop in this moment of looking externally, the stop of needing, wanting, desiring anything but yourself, right? The final concept, the final desire. The stop comes, and just a moment of stop, of deep enough silence, where the mind consciousness, the waves of mind consciousness, we could say the frequency, the denser frequency of mind consciousness surrenders itself enough, merges into the resonance, and hear the recognition, hear the remembering, right? So sometimes the mind will come in and say, well, I don't know if that's the stop, and I don't know if the perspective has shifted, right? The mind will never know that. The mind will always want to come in with doubt. The knowing is in the being. The confirmation is in the heart. It's about being the being and not looking to the mind for any kind of authority. At some point, the knowing is deep enough that the perspective shifts and it's an unquestionable. But that is divine grace, right? It's a maturing, a ripening that is naturally unfolding. And so what is unfolding in that is not is consciousness to itself, but it's it's the consciousness that feels to be individual that's unfolding to its cosmic universal nature. The purity, it's not actually getting purer, but you consciousness, your experience consciousness is shifting from individuality and limitation to the remembering of your own purity and the unity of your own consciousness with all consciousness, right? And in that, the recognition of your own essential nature as consciousness. And in this, the recognition in the intelligence of the same essential nature of everything in appearance. The knowing that anything and everything is only seen by the light of awareness. The seeing of any appearance is only known as this moment here now. Any experience, the mind interprets it and creates time and space. But in truth, any experience is only known by the light of awareness here now. So as you recognize that you are the light of awareness, you recognize that all experience is only ever really the light of consciousness experiencing itself. So as these words come, do not try to understand with the mind or follow with the mind. Feel the resonance. Rest only with the resonance. Only being the consciousness that is experiencing itself, resonating in a frequency of its own alive recognition, the awakeness, the awake field that is fresh and awake. Here, the consciousness knowing itself, being itself, knowing itself, being itself. Here you are knowing yourself, being the being, right? Being the being here now, knowing the truth of this in the being, in the heart itself. The recognition, the confirmation is in the direct experience of being the vast open field that is infinite and unbounded. The direct experience of yourself and the felt sense is that you are everywhere, that you're watching the body, watching the mind, watching the person, the character. You're watching all of the characters. You're watching the whole world, right? You're watching the whole appearance from a zoomed out source, a zoomed out vastness. And the felt sense of where you actually are as the zoomed out watcher cannot actually be located. You have no address, no fixed abode, right? You're completely and utterly free, right? You're the field, you're the universal field, and you're experiencing yourself. You're watching all of the appearance, the unique appearance appear. You're watching the moving, changing as the pure awareness, right? You're watching as the pure awareness. So here, the confirmation that you are the pure awareness. What you are in truth is pure awareness. It's a recognition in awareness itself. It's the awake awareness that says, oh yeah, oh yeah. It's the oh yeah that changes the whole life, right? You are the pure awareness. No more person, no more bondage, no more separation, right? No more illusion. Seeing through the illusion, recognizing that what you are is utterly free, infinite, immaculate being. You are peace. You are simple peace. You are awareness, aware of yourself as awareness. Now, the felt sense of yourself doesn't change. This is the felt sense of yourself that has always been here. You have been your constant companion your whole life. It's just that who you are is not the person. You're the silence. You're the awake awareness. You're the constant silent being that has always been here. You have always been one with yourself. You have never been the someone, the me, the mine, the story, the drama. You have never been that. You have always been utterly free of that. And there have been so many glimpses, so many moments of recognition that have been overlooked through the whole life, right? Because there wasn't an understanding, or there wasn't the companionship to allow that recognition to stay grounded. So we took on the story. We took on the story of separation. We took on the story of me and mine. We took it on in order to survive. Wasn't really another way, right? But the truth is that underneath all of that, you have never left yourself. You have always been the immaculate being. You have always been yourself. You have always been love, pure, innocent, immaculate being. You have never, ever left yourself. And as these words come, it is just to feel the resonance where you can feel the truth that you're not only enough, you are wholeness, right? You're not good enough. You're not enough. You are wholeness. You're so much more than enough, right? You're everything. You're wholeness. You are complete. There's nothing missing in you, nothing wrong with you. And there never has been anything missing or wrong with you, right? So in the recognition of this, there is no more need to keep seeking in the world for the missing pieces. There's no more need to keep looking to be validated and seen and heard by the players of the world, because the knowing of yourself is freedom from the sense of being separate and divided and needing to work to prove yourself, to justify yourself, to make a life that's meaningful. You discover in the knowing of yourself that all the meaning is right here, and it's got no words. It's the fullness, it's the wholeness, it's everything, it's all that you are, and it's all that you have ever been. It includes everything. You are good, you are whole, you are truth, you are pure, and your purity is shining. Suddha Sattva, right? Your purity is shining. When there is a resting in the self, in the luminous light of being the aware being, you are the Suddha Sattva, the pure immaculate being, that which is before the flow of, in a way, of ignorance, the flow that creates separation. Without you're before the flow of the gunas, let's say, if we know what gunas are. We're before the rajas and the tamas. We're pure sattva. But when sattva is totally pure, it's not a quality, it's quality less, right? We come to the quality less, the purity, right? No qualities, no differentiation, just the purity, right? This is who you are, and this is who you have always been. So as these words come, it's just to recognize the resonance. It's not about confirming with the mind, oh yeah, I'm pure, I'm good, I'm goodness, I'm enough, right? It's not about that. It's not about the mind telling itself like an affirmation. It's a deep and direct experience, recognition, recognizing, right? True cognition is happening in the field of intelligence, in the consciousness itself. True cognition is the intelligence of consciousness knowing itself, self-knowledge, right? Pure knowledge. The knowledge of the self is here, and it's shining. It's shining in the knowing of itself. So there is no one to do anything, to attain anything, to get anywhere, to understand. Effort and trying, it takes you away from yourself. This is the effortless being, right? Sometimes there can be the speaking that it takes effort and practice to come to rest in the being, right? Now, there's a subtle truth in that, but that kind of effort is effortless, right? There's a subtlety in words here, because the mind loves effort, as in effort, trying, the me, trying, putting in an effort, doing a practice, that there's a doer. But let's say the true subtlety of the kind of effort that brings you into yourself is more of an earnestness, more of a sincerity, right? It's not an effort that has a doer or a trier that's efforting. That will always, always bring you only into some kind of state, let's say, right? You could follow a practice and come into a state, but then when you stop the practice, the me and the mind is going to start spinning again. That's not what we're speaking of here. We're speaking of like sahaja, right? Sahajam. We're speaking of the natural, effortless being that's always here. And we don't want to get stuck in states and practices that hold us in a sense of the transcendent, but we don't actually recognize that you are the transcendent, right? If there's still a meditator, still a practicer, in a way, that one is still a doer. It's still an efforter, right? So any kind of practice has to be effortless. And really, this is where the subtlety of the effort that carries you into yourself is a constant coming to the being, to now, to now, to now. And this really is more of an earnestness or a sincerity, right? So there's no one in this. It's about coming to the longing, the earnestness, the sincerity, the pull, right? Because here you surrender the one who is longing into pure longing. You surrender the one that is sincere into pure sincerity, right? You stop being someone that wants something, right? You let the desire for freedom, the desire for God, the desire to know yourself, in a way, the resonant longing, the yearning that's inside that desire, you let that let go into the magnetic pull of the self into itself. And it feels like presence. And it feels like your presence, because it is. This is the self that is before name and form and story. This is the self that has always been free, right? This is the I without a thought attaching it to mind and body in someone. This is the I that is the pure openness that can carry itself effortlessly into itself. I, right? So it's not a mental repeating of a mantra, I am. It's not a mental repeating of a mantra. In a way, we can use a mental repeating of a mantra. In a practice, this gets spoken of, using the mental repeating of a mantra to bring us to the stillness, to the, in a way, it brings the mind out of projection and thinking, so that in a way the mind is thinking a mantra, and there's a magic that happens in thinking the mantra, that there's a transcendence that happens where mind consciousness, when it's thinking the I am or a mantra, it opens to the transcendent. Now, if the mind and an efforter or a meditator is saying, keep saying the mantra, right? And it's going to bring you back from the transcendent to keep being the one that's doing the practice. So what we're speaking of with the I, and what's so important is a felt sense, I. What is this I? What is this felt sense of being here? You feel yourself here, the felt sense of presence. It's different to any kind of mental mantra repeating or exercise. It's a felt sense. Are you here? Yes. Where do you go to find out? It's just obvious that you're here. It's a felt sense. This is the openness. This is the magic portal to yourself. This is the grace that's been given where recognition can happen, right? It's not mental. It's a felt sense. And even if the felt sense starts off to feel that it has connection to body or mind, the felt sense itself, when it's focused upon, it naturally is recognized in awareness, in consciousness, to be expansive and infinite and unbounded. The consciousness of the felt sense of the presence that's alive, it starts to recognize itself in the aliveness, right? So the aliveness of the presence is very important, right? Feel it now, the felt sense of being, the felt sense of being here. I am, or I, are you here? Yes. Feel the aliveness of the presence. The aliveness is consciousness, alive and awake to itself, right? The aliveness, even this first touch into alive presence, is the same aliveness of consciousness, alive and awake to itself, right? This is the openness. This is the openness. So in the aliveness, in this aliveness, this felt sense, be aware of the aliveness. Be awake to the aliveness. Notice it, right? What are you noticing it with? Awareness, right? You're noticing it with your own awareness. Awareness is noticing, aware of the aliveness, recognizing the aliveness, awake to the aliveness. You don't need to make any sense of it. It's to be so fully absorbed, to be immersed and pulled in to the alive presence. It's a resonance. It's like a vibration, a frequency. Recognize it and be one with it, right? Don't ask how, just be more immediate and spontaneous. Be one with it through being the felt sense of it. Fall deeper into the felt sense. As you come deeper into the felt sense shifts. It starts to shift from individuality of I'm feeling it or body feels it, to the felt sense starts to be recognized that the aliveness is not in the body, the aliveness is everywhere. It's in the environment around the sense of the body-mind. The alive presence is everywhere. It's alive and awake to itself. It's not definable whether it's in the body or out of the body. But as you feel the resonance is everywhere, right? And it's upon this resonance that consciousness opens and expands and merges into the remembering of its unified cosmic nature, right? So the aliveness starts to be recognized in your direct experience as everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Don't try to make sense of it or understand it. Just keep feeling the felt sense of being everywhere. And the felt sense that the alive presence that's everywhere, it's the feeling of yourself. It's the feeling of what you are, that you know it because you are it. This is the being itself, and opening into its true vastness and recognizing itself as being everywhere, unbounded, free, right? The felt sense. So following the words, not as instructions to effort over, but following the direct experience, following your direct experience into yourself. And as there's a deeper resonance of recognition that what is being spoken is happening in your direct experience, let there be this silent confirmation in the being that confirms in the being, in the self, in the wide open heart, yes, this is true here, right? We're merging with the cosmic, universal consciousness and opening to this incredible, vast, pure field, remembering your true essence nature, recognizing what you are, who you are, but not as a someone or something, but as just this vast openness, this spaciousness, an unboundedness, recognizing consciousness is recognizing itself and feeling the direct sense of the freedom. So if this has already been opened and awakened to, then the following of this just enlivens it, the knowing even more. The consciousness just gets even more enlivened with the knowing. And there's such a joy in the recognition. There's such a joy in the clarity, because the clarity is consciousness recognizing itself and flowing in itself. And then the flow starts to be felt more and more, flowing. And the flowing is the flowing of intelligence, right? And so this opening, it never gets old, right? There's never anything that says, oh, yes, I know that already. That's only the mind trying to hang on to an old experience. The repetition of exactly the same opening into the flow is like, whoa, it's like just this gorgeousness of flowing on the current. It's like surfing, right? It's like just surfing on the flow of the current, that the knowing is here. You know the truth of who you are, and you're opening more and more deeply. And there's more aliveness, even more aliveness, more flow, more joy, more sparkling awe and wonder, right? As the flow of pure consciousness recognizes itself, because it's recognizing more of itself. And as it recognizes more of itself, it's shimmering and glimmering. And here more love, more aliveness, right? More holiness, more sacredness, more awe and wonder, right? And still deep, deep peace, deep, deep, silent peace. And yet there can be flows that are so alive that it can almost seem, is the peace still here? But when there's a resting, oh yes, underneath the flow, deep, silent peace, deep, silent being. And the flow, right? In a way, both are here, but both are not two. Both are one, right? We're opening to the deep, silent peace of pure awareness and the flow of pure consciousness. It's all one. And it's in the process of knowing its own oneness, right? So it feels like two until it recognizes and remembers its oneness. So don't worry if the silence of pure awareness, the silent being, and the alive, awake, flowing being feel like two beings, because it's all in the natural, intelligent flow of recognizing its deep oneness as a unified consciousness. Now, here's the gorgeousness. It already is one, right? It already is divine wholeness. And it's your experience, your direct experience is where it's deepening into finer and finer recognitions. It's deepening. As we speak of deepening, it can seem like there's some sense of the unique or the individuality. And there is a unique sense in the direct experiencing. But what starts to open up in consciousness is that even though there's a uniqueness, it doesn't feel individual, as in separate from the whole. That the uniqueness, it's recognized that any sense of uniqueness or individuality is actually flowing in complete oneness with the whole flow of consciousness, right? That there's no sense of separation, that there's a felt sense in the flow of the essence, nature of all. And consciousness is flowing to recognize itself in that depth of oneness, to really fully know the oneness, to mature, refine into the oneness, right? So this is what is happening right here now in the field, in the vast open field. And wherever you are in this vast open field, it's just to be where you are so fully, right? Not to get distracted by the mind's ideas or wantings, to be so fully where you are now, in the resonance, in the aliveness, in the flow, or in the silence, in the silent, deep, deep, still silent being. Wherever you are, it's just to be where you are and allow the resonance to deepen and focus so that the being recognizing itself is confirming the knowing of itself deeper and deeper and deeper, confirming itself in the wide open heart. And here, so much beauty, so much love. And the knowing here, of course, is that the self, the being is love. What you are is love. And so all sense of love and loving, let's say, others, right? Where othership disappears, it's recognized that the love that you feel for an apparent other is the love for yourself, right? It's the love that you are. And it's the openness that you have to the love that you are, the openness of the knowing of yourself, the openness, we could say, to the true heart, to the self, is how deeply that love can be felt. So even if there's a sense of love for others, for everyone, right? It's all the love for yourself. It's all about how deeply this love of yourself, this knowing of yourself is recognized. In a way, all sense of other is asking to refine into the being, to find the source of other in your own heart, to find the source of any sense of other in the love that you are, in the being that you are, in the one heart that you are, right? So in the openness of being the being, the flow of this is like a flow of love. The love that loves itself, the consciousness that knows itself, self-knowing itself. It flows in this openness, acceptance, allowing, and this is love, right? And we feel that love, and we can feel it in our human lived experience as love of another. But pure love is like a meeting in the heart, right? And it doesn't matter where a seeming other being is. If you can find that seeming other as love in yourself, in the oneness, then there's just this beautiful openness, and it changes the ways of relating and all of that in the play of life, right? So everything knows itself in its essence nature. The source of all is the same one self, the same one being, the same one love, one heart, right? And here where there is recognition, it's just to be here, resting, resonating as the openness of wide open heart, effulgent, shining as the self knowing itself, being itself. There's a naturalness here, a naturalness and a simplicity in this recognition. And it does not matter if we enter into an absorption, an immersion in the being here, into the consciousness here, any depth of absorption, any depth of samadhi, right? Of knowing yourself as the transcendent. It's rich, and it's all the same self, right? It's all the same divine wholeness. It doesn't matter if identification comes back in or conditioning comes back in. The absorption is absorption in the same self. The absorption is the same one being, right? So any resting in this samadhi, in this absorption in the self, in the being, is deeply, deeply, let's say, nourishing. It's nourishing in a way that cannot even be explained. It's nourishing in the way of bliss flowing, right? The bliss that you are, right? This deep, peaceful contentedness. It's like a blissful being, the bliss of being. Now, just like love, any love is the same one love. Any bliss is the same one bliss, right? It's to find that bliss, not as an experience externally, but to recognize that bliss is your true nature. Find that bliss inside. Find that bliss as yourself. Find the bliss in the bliss of being. And so here in this absorption in the being, in the bliss of being, the flow here of bliss, it brings a flow in the bliss that is nectarine. It brings nectar, and the nectar is what nourishes the deepening. In a way, of course, the being already knows itself, and the being isn't deepening into itself, but at the point there's a deepening happening, right? where there's a thinning of the veils. And the thinning of the veils is also dissolving the vasanas. It's dissolving the patternings of consciousness. It's dissolving the conditionings. And the more that we're resting in this absorbed samadhi in the being, and the nectarine bliss is flowing, this is nourishing the deepening by actually clearing. It clears the conditionings and the patterns of consciousness by illuminating and dissolving all the patternings very, very naturally, right? Now, if we're able to really rest here deeply, a lot of things don't need to play out on the surface of life. What plays out on the surface of life, it plays out because we generally don't rest here. And the surface of life, play, is a constant invitation to come back here, to not be fooled by the phenomena and the story, but to just receive it and rest here, meet the feelings and sensations, and really find, where is the source of all of this? Where is this all arising from? To rest here in the being, receiving and allowing stresses to release, allowing old habits to identify, to release. If we could just rest here in the samadhi, right, through sincerity, through earnestness, then the deepening happens in the most extraordinary way, right? But most beings won't and don't rest. Feel like, well, I can't, my life's too busy. Well, there we go, right? There's still desires in the external. If this is the only desire, if this is the only desire truly, right? You can even use your imagination for this one for a moment. This is the only desire, right? Nothing else is longed for. You fall into the longing and you rest here. You don't care, even if you're going to get any dinner. You don't care about what anyone's doing. You don't care about returning that email, right? All you care about is God. All you care about is going all the way, right? So you rest here, you rest here, you rest here, right? The deeper the glimpse, the more that there comes to be a resting. Of course, there's a flow of life that is flowing, and there's a naturalness to that. There's a flow of life, right? So body moves, it moves in the flow of life. Can you keep resting? Can you keep resting while life is happening? Right? You don't have to stay sitting in your chair in the cave, the proverbial cave, right? You stay resting in your heart. You stay resting in the being, and life is happening and you're watching. Life is happening and you're watching. And suddenly you get hooked. Resistance comes in, something happens, something plays itself out. You watch it, you catch it, you come back to the being, right? This is the refinement that's happening in the play of consciousness, the play of life. But here we've already seen through the illusion of separation. This is the divine Leela. This is Ma having fun with herself, right? This is God having fun. Consciousness, experiencing consciousness and relishing that experiencing in order to know itself and see itself in the light of awareness. So this is what is happening right now, this moment. This is what is happening. And as these words come, you feel the resonance and you feel the recognition. The recognition is the remembering happening in the field of intelligence. You are made of intelligence. You are this intelligence, this consciousness. And the recognition is happening in consciousness itself. And that is the magic of this kind of sharing, is that it's not instructions, it's silence. It's deep, deep silence. Now, some beings won't recognize that. They will imagine that any kind of speaking or noise is interrupting the silence. What we can say, if that everyone was ready for deep silence, then that is the teaching, the way that it would be shared. But we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that depth of just silent, let's say silent transmission, right? Because the mind would start getting bored and say, oh, well, I've got things to do. It would be thinking and thinking and thinking. This way of sharing, what happens is that it pulls you out of mind consciousness and into the remembering of the pure consciousness, the pure being that you are. It pulls you naturally without you even knowing. And suddenly, spontaneously, how did you get here? Oh, you've always been here. And all that's really happened is a remembering, a resonant recognition is happening, because attention is not going towards the mind consciousness and kowtowing to the mind consciousness. And so you start to feel lighter and clearer and more beautiful as the being is innocent, pure, immaculate beauty, right? The remembering is here because the remembering is always here. So where you are resting now, this is the truth of who you are when you're not following the mind's ideas of all that needs to happen, right? So the resting here is a remembering in the field of universal cosmic consciousness. It's the intelligence that you're made of. And this remembering never forgets. Even when seeming forgetting happens and you get hooked and identified, this remembering still remembers. And it's about coming back to this depth of remembering, and entering into the samadhi, the absorption in the being. The depth that we go into, we can always enter right back in to the depth that we have opened to that frequency, right? This frequency. We just open into a samadhi, right? An absorption in the self, in the being. And we're opening to this incredible remembering, relaxation of the self that is luminous, divine wholeness, ever shining Brahman. And the para Brahman, right? The finer and finer frequencies. And we have this possibility, incredibly, what we are is the totality, right? We're made of an intelligence, let's say, that is the totality, right? So we hear that of the point and the infinity, right? It's easy to see how the infinity includes all the points, but how does the point include in the whole of infinity? How does the point include the whole totality, right? In the intelligence, right? What we're made of is a cocktail of the total intelligence, right? So none of this will make any sense to the mind, but let the resonance resonate. We include the totality because we're made of the totality of the intelligence, we could say the laws of nature, the divine frequencies. We are made of that. And that in our humanness, this is why we have the possibility in our humanness to recognize totality, to recognize divine wholeness through the human experience, is because the human experience is a movement of the total intelligence of consciousness. So of course it's not someone that's opening to that. That's old news, right? We're well away from believing any of that nonsense. What we are, the human experience, is consciousness experiencing itself in a way. There's a totality to it that allows there to be a total opening to the full and pure, total intelligence, let's say for now, divinity really it is, the whole divine wholeness of consciousness, right? So this is the incredible reason that a human life sometimes gets spoken about. Oh, it's revered to have a human life. You know, all souls want, everything wants a human life. And that's to why this human life is precious. And that's why we don't want to get distracted. We want to really allow this human life, which is consciousness in an experience of itself in a certain configuration. But the configuration is, let's say, wired for what gets called enlightenment. It's wired to know its absolute totality, right? So this is not about someone having an experience or getting somewhere or attaining anything. It's a movement in consciousness. It's an evolution, we could say, in consciousness. To open and open and open to the finer and finer and finer frequencies. And then to be that resonance as an emanation. We are then resonating at the finest frequency we've opened to, always in service. Where as we open to finer and finer frequencies, then we're resonating. We're like a divine cell tower, right? Wherever we are, whatever's happening, we're resonating at the divine finest frequencies that we've opened to. Wherever we are, whatever's happening, and that's shifting the whole. It's supporting the whole, right? So resting here in the being, resting here. Resting in the beauty, the love, the openness, the grace, the flow, the deep, deep, extraordinary silent peace. And knowing yourself, confirming in the heart. All confirmation is in the heart. There is no other, there is no second. Find the source of all in the heart. Find reconciliation in the heart, the one heart. What seems like your heart is the heart. And the deepest possible reconciliation is, let's say, reconciliation with the God, light, divine wholeness, right? With your God nature, with Ma. Reconciliation into the being, into the being, into the heart, into the heart, into this moment here now. Resonating, resting in an absorption, like a mauna samadhi, silent absorption. And here, the ever deepening confirmation as the nectarine bliss flows, nourishing, nourishing, nourishing. Just to be yourself, just to be the being that you are. The aliveness, right? The aliveness is important. the aliveness of the presence, of the silence, of the longing. Wherever you feel that aliveness, it's to merge in the felt sense of the aliveness, merge deeper into it. If there is any practice, it is the play of exploring your own consciousness, resting in deeper, feeling that felt sense more deeply, directly, feeling the aliveness, feeling the deep silent peace and the resonance of that, feeling the flow, the aliveness of the flow, cosmically exploring your own consciousness, ever deepening into yourself, the self that you have always been.